Ahoy, explorers! Today we are out on the water. We are going to be exploring our local oceans in search of whales. But you know what? Oh my goodness. Even though it's already pretty sunny, I think I also need a jacket. Oh my gosh, what sort of supplies do you think we need on our whale watch? If you would like to interact with us today, please feel free to text us or email us. If you are watching this live on Tuesday at 9 a.m., you can text us 562-286-1838. Our captain today is Sergio, taking us on our boat excursion today. He is also watching those text lines if you would like to text us any questions or observations. If you are watching this and it's already been recorded, we would still love to hear from you. Please email us at live@lbaop.org. All right, explorers, I'm going to be your naturalist on board this boat today. My name is Tiffany, and again, we're out here on the open ocean, here in Southern California. What supplies do you think we need to be ready to be out on this boat? I'm already looking pretty unprepared because it is winter in California. I at least need a jacket. Okay, it gets a lot colder out on the ocean than it does on land. Much colder, especially right now. We're just kind of cruising along on the ocean, but once Sergio hears about a whale or dolphin that's off in the distance and we take off, woo, that breeze is very cold. At least for me. I don't tolerate the cold very well. And again, it's pretty sunny, so I gotta make sure I have sunscreen on and that I have my sunglasses. Now, the ocean is really big. And to look for whales and dolphins, sometimes you gotta look off in the far distances. I don't always have the best eyesight. What about you? Is there some sort of tool or device that we can use to see far distances? Something more powerful than just glasses? Binoculars! We can also use binoculars to see far distances. So make two circles with your hands, put them together. Oh, look at that. We got our binoculars. Ooh, do you see something off in the distance? We might have our first animal. Oh, Captain Sergio just said that we're going to speed up. Hold on to the railing. You don't want to fall in. Okay, we're going really fast now. Out on the open ocean in our boat. Make sure you're holding on. Nobody walking around the boat at this time. Ooh, so we found something right next to our boat. It's not our destination, whatever we found possibly out there, but we found some dolphins. Now, dolphins are very playful animals. They love to swim in the wake of the boat. So it's pretty common to see some dolphins. Look at these dolphins. We're looking right over the edge of the boat now, and we see all of these dolphins here. Now, those look to me like they are common dolphins. Now, even though they are called common dolphins, and it sounds like, oh, we see them all the time, I would say that common dolphins are pretty special. I love to see them, and they are smaller than bottlenose dolphins. When we think of a dolphin in our head, we tend to think of a bottlenose dolphin. They're big and they're all gray. These common dolphins are smaller, and you might have noticed that they have some color patches on the side of their body, kind of white or cream color, maybe even a little yellow on the side of their body. So, ooh, looking at the other side of the boat, look at this group of dolphins. Oh my goodness, it is such a big group. How many dolphins do you see? So when we are trying to count the amount of dolphins, and again, as they're popping out of the water, again, you can see that kind of color patch that I was telling you about that kind of looks a little bit more of a cream color, maybe a yellow color. That's how we can know that they are common dolphins as opposed to a different species. And when we try to count dolphins, I mean, look at them. They're all moving so fast, it's hard to tell. You try to count the number of dolphins you see at any given moment, and you can double or triple that number to estimate how many dolphins are in the area. So at any given point in time, try to count the amount of dolphins that you see, and then double or triple that number, and then that's a good estimate of the amount of animals that are in this area. Now, we got lucky. In the very beginning of our whale watch, we were able to see some dolphins. But what sorts of things? I mean, look at this. The ocean is so clear and so flat today. What should we be looking for when we're trying to find whales and dolphins? There are a couple of things that we should be looking for, and that me and Captain Sergio more than me, also trying to teach you. But the thing are out on the water. So there's a couple of things. One of the things that we are looking for is actually bird activity. Now you might be thinking, Tiffany, I came here to see whales and dolphins. I didn't come here to see birds. Or maybe you are a bird fan and you're like, yes, bring on the birds. But if off in the distance we see a lot of bird activity, that tells us that there is food in the water. And if there is food in the water, there's probably other animals in the water that are also interested in that food. Dolphins, whales, and maybe even some seals or sea lions also in that area. We tend to call that a feeding frenzy, when there's a lot of food in the water and a lot of different species are coming together and not feeding off of that food. So if you see any bird activity out on the horizon, make sure to shout it out. Also, we might be looking for what's called a blow or spout. So big whales, they have a blowhole on the top of their head, and they can hold their breath for a really long time because they are mammals, just like you and me. So they have to breathe air. They don't have gills like a fish, so they still have to come up to the surface of the water, let out the breath of air that they've been holding on to, and then take in a new breath of air. When they let out that big breath of air, it kind of looks like a big puff of smoke or a big cloud that suddenly comes up out of the water. And since it's such a clear day, we'll definitely be able to see one of those blows or spouts from a great distance. And that tells us that there is a big baleen whale off in the distance. Oh, Captain Sergio sees a big group of birds off in the distance. Let's hold on, because we are about to speed up. Okay, we're going fast now. Out on the open ocean. Does anyone see Catalina yet? That is a small island that's just 22 miles off of our coast. And I sometimes use Catalina. Oh, okay, we're slowing down. Ooh, what do we see? Okay, so this is what we were talking about. All of that bird activity. There's birds in the air. There's birds diving down into the water. What do you think we're going to find here? Just birds? Do you think there's any other animals here that we might find? We could find large whales. We could find dolphins. We could find pinnipeds, which are seals or sea lions. What do you think we are going to find here? Keep your eyes open. Okay, we see. Okay, we'll use our binoculars. Sergio says that there's something off in the distance. What do you see? What? He says he sees a heart floating on top of the water. Do you see that? Oh, wow! What is this? This is the tail of a whale. So whales have two large pectoral fins, and then they have this fluke, is what it's called. Their whale tail, their fluke, is their back flipper that they really use. They swim up and down like this. Show me your whale tail. Swim up and down like this to move through the water. And sometimes when a whale dives down, and they're maybe going to dive down pretty deep, we tend to see their fluke. And this is a great picture to see. And when you go on other whale watches, make sure you always bring your camera. That's another piece of equipment that I forgot to mention. Sunglasses, maybe a hat, jacket, our binoculars, and a camera to take pictures and have those memories, but then also to help be a scientist. So community scientists around our continent take pictures of whales and help out fellow scientists in identifying whales. Because just like all of our fingerprints are different and we can use fingerprints to help ID certain people, we can use pictures of a whale's fluke to identify that whale because each fluke looks different. Do you see how this has a certain raggedy edge and how we have a little bit of white but a lot of scratches here, and there's a little bit more white but a lot of scratches over here, and we got some barnacles. Those two barnacles kind of look like two little eyeballs right there on this fluke. So we can use that information and those little markers to look at past photos that we have taken of whales to see if we have ever seen this particular individual before. And if you happen to be the first one to see this whale before and you upload it, you potentially could name it as well. So we have whales that have names that visit us year after year, but every once in a while we get brand new whales that visit the area, and we know that they are new whales that we haven't seen before because we have a database of pictures of all of these flukes, and it is pretty cool to see the same whales come year after year, or sometimes we don't see them for years at a time, but then all of a sudden we see them again and we realize, wow, we saw this same whale in 2017. I wonder what it's been up to. So it doesn't give us their whole story, but it is interesting to know how often they come down here to Southern California and how often we personally see them here in Southern California. So very, very cool. Now, what? Oh, okay, let's go to the other side of the boat. Let's see what else we see. Ooh, so this is a gray whale that we are seeing here. And there is that blower spout that we were talking about. And then do you see all this? Whoa, all of that brown? What happened? Did it just spit out some Thanksgiving gravy? No. To understand what's happening here, we're going to have to talk a little bit about how these large baleen whales actually eat. So these large baleen whales, they don't have teeth like you and me. So they don't take in some food like some fish and chew it up and swallow it. But rather they have baleen that sort of acts like a pasta strainer. They take in, for the most part, most baleen whales, take in a big mouthful of water. Oh, here's a great picture. Yeah, here's a great picture of the face of that gray whale. So we see this stuff inside of its mouth that almost looks like a hair comb. That is their baleen. And so most baleen whales take in a big mouthful of water, but then they have food in their mouth and water in their mouth. And then they use their tongue to push all that water out, but then the food gets trapped in their baleen. Something that's different about gray whales, they don't take in a big mouthful of water and filter out the water and the food. They actually dive down into the sediment, so into the sand, into the dirt. They take in a big mouthful of dirt and sand, and they filter the food out of the dirt and sand. So what we were just seeing was that gray whale was eating. That gray whale took in a big mouthful of dirt. It was pushing all the dirt out of its mouth. And then what do you think is left inside of its mouth? It's the food, but it's things like little crabs and crustaceans. And that is what the whale is going to be eating. Now you saw a little bit of salad, a little seaweed salad on the lip of that whale there. Probably not its intention to eat its veggies. It's more so trying to get those little crustaceans and maybe small fish. But it probably also gets the occasional algae in its diet as well. So that's something that's unique about the gray whale that's different from the other baleen whales. Also, the funny thing is when they go down, they don't just take a mouthful straight on. They kind of go to the side and scoop up some of that sediment. And the gray whales tend to favor one side over the other. So over time, you start to see that one side of their face is kind of worn down a little bit more than the other, and that's because that's the side that they favor, and they always go down and scoop a mouthful of sediment on that side, which is pretty interesting. Now, ooh, okay, we're going to speed up. Captain Sergio thinks he sees another whale off in the distance. Whoa, we're really going fast here. It is windy. Woo! Okay, you holding on to the railing? No walking around the boat while we're going this fast. It's very easy to lose your balance. Okay, whoo. Okay. We're slowed down. What do you see? Let's get our binoculars out. Ooh, right along the side of the boat. Do you see these whales? How many whales do you see? Oh my goodness, I at least see 3. You can see that they're very close to the boat. Now these are some humpback whales. So we saw some gray whales just a couple of moments ago. Now we're seeing these humpback whales. Wow, look at that. Now something that I like about humpback whales is how large their pectoral flippers are. It is crazy how large they are. And also, you might know of humpback whales because of their beautiful songs. They have a very low, deep voice, and they sing these songs on repeat. And because it's such a low, deep sound, the sound of their songs carries across the ocean. And that is how they communicate with one another through these long, deep wave sound songs. So, ooh, Sergio just put a camera down into the water. We'll see if we can get a full body picture of these whales. Now, being on a whale watch, ooh, look at this. Now, being on a whale watch, usually all you see are the tops of the whales, maybe the little tail, but we just put a camera into the water so that we can see that huge pectoral fin that I was talking about. And now, remember I said that this is a humpback whale. So this right here is the dorsal fin, and then we see a little bumpy back after that dorsal fin. That's how they got their name of humpback whale. Now, for the most part, when it comes to ocean animals, the larger the dorsal fin, the faster the animal swims. That's kind of an indicator for us. Would you say this is a very large dorsal fin? No. When it comes to baleen whales, they tend to have very small dorsal fins, and they swim very slow. The dolphins have a much larger dorsal fin than the baleen whales do, but this kind of bumpy back here is how they got their name of humpback. Now, we also see all of these little bumps here on its face. Those little bumps on its face, each one grows just a random little hair, and that's how these animals are also considered a mammal like you and me. So they breathe air, they have a little bit of hair at some point in their life, and they have live birth babies, and those babies drink milk. So that is how these animals are mammals, just like you and me. But this huge pectoral flipper here is something that is very unique and distinct about these humpback whales versus other baleen whales. And I'm not really sure why they are so large compared to other whales. Maybe they're just able to swim a little bit faster than some other baleen whales. But that is something that is very easy to help you identify the next time you're out on a whale watch trying to identify whales in the ocean. That huge pectoral flipper there helps to identify. And sometimes they come up to the water, and with that big flipper, they'll smack the water. Now, that is again making sound. It's possibly a way for them to communicate with one another, or maybe they're even trying to communicate with us. But we can see that fin smacking behavior. This species is also one of my favorites to see on a whale watch because they tend to be, as far as the baleen whale family goes, the most acrobatic. We can see these humpback whales breach, that means coming out of the water. Sometimes they just kind of spy hop, they kind of pop up and then pop back down, but sometimes they do come up out of the water and do a full breach. It's quite the acrobatic show. You don't tend to see that amount of energy come from these super large whales, but with this species, you do. So they tend to be my favorite to see. I wonder if we'll see any breaching humpbacks on this adventure. Ooh, okay, so we're taking a look at a picture of it, and that again is the baleen. So this tells me that this animal is probably feeding. We saw 3 animals in the water. They're probably feeding in this area. These large baleen whales tend to like to eat krill. So again, they're taking big mouthfuls of water, and there's a lot of krill in that water, and then they separate the krill from the water. And they are using this big, big baleen to do that. And let me see, I might have some baleen here to show you. And yes, I do. This is an example actually of humpback baleen. So what we're seeing is this part here. Okay, so you're seeing the outside of the baleen here. It looks like a comb, and it's a bunch of rows of this baleen. But on the inside, so on the inside of their mouth where their tongue would be, it's very, very bristly. And you can see that there's not a lot of space in between each piece of baleen. It's enough space for water to flow through, but not enough space for the food that they're trying to eat to flow through. So it gets stuck in the baleen, all of the food, and then they can use their tongue to kind of lick the inside of their baleen and swallow their food. So they, for the most part, even though they are huge, huge animals, they are eating tiny, tiny little creatures. So do you think they just eat one tiny creature and they're good? No! They have to eat tons and tons of these tiny little creatures called krill in order to have a full belly at the end of the day. Now, for the most part, these animals find that large abundance of food in cold, cold waters. Now, I think this water is pretty cold, but it's definitely not as cold as if you were to go farther north. That's much colder water. That water is rich in nutrients and rich in food. But we have a very unique geography here in Southern California, and we have a pretty deep little canyon in between us and Catalina. That causes a lot of upwelling of nutrients, and that's why we can see a good amount of whales down here in Southern California, even though our water isn't as cold to them. Cold to me, for sure, but not as cold to these large baleen whales. Okay, so the captain just told me our whale watch tour is starting to wrap up. So we have finished going out. We are going back in to land. We still might see some animals though, and make sure you're holding on while we are going fast, trying to get us back to shore. It's still possible to see some animals even in the harbor. I've actually seen a gray whale in the harbor before, but in the harbor is sometimes where I can find some of my favorite animals. I do love whales and dolphins, but pinnipeds have definitely got to be my favorite. So fingers crossed. Let's see, it is winter. Okay, we're slowing down. Ooh. Okay, grab your binoculars. The captain is telling me he sees some more fins, possibly some more flukes. Grab your binoculars. What do you see? This close to shore? What? Oh! Ha ha ha! We see some more flippers, but not necessarily whale flippers. What do you see here? These are some California sea lions. So you can see the head here, another head there, and a head there. What do you think they're doing? They're waving, "Hi, boat!" What do you think they're doing? This is actually how they regulate their body temperature. So they are mammals just like you and me, and one characteristic of being a mammal, take the back of your hand, put it to your forehead. Do you feel warm or cold? I feel warm. We are warm-blooded versus fish in the ocean. They are not warm-blooded like us. But these sea lions are warm-blooded, and they're hanging out in some pretty cold, cold water. Thankfully, they do have a thick layer of blubber to keep them warm, but they also have this strategy of sticking some flippers out of the water, and that helps them to regulate their body temperature so that they don't get too cold or too hot. I love seeing these California sea lions, and it's usually you hear them before you actually see them. Do you know what a California sea lion sounds like? I'll try my best. Arr! Arr! They make a loud barking sound, and that is how they got their name of lion. Versus, we also have harbor seals in this area, but they really don't make much noise. And they look pretty different than these animals as well. They tend to be smaller, and we can see those really, really big flippers on the sea lions. The seals do not have very big flippers. They have very small flippers. I actually have a little model of a seal here. And you can see that this front flipper is very, very small. The nice thing about having a big flipper like this is when these animals do come on land, they don't spend all of their time in the water like whales and dolphins. When they do come onto land, they can use those big flippers kind of like legs, and they can walk around on all fours kind of like a dog. But seals, when they come onto land, they have such a small front flipper that they can't really use this like a leg to walk around. So instead, they kind of do the worm. They belly flop when they come onto land, and that's how they move around. Versus, oh, okay. So the captain says he sees something still in this same area. We're going to try and zoom in and see what else we can find. There might be something else in this area. What? I was not expecting this. Okay, I take it back. This is my favorite animal. So it goes otters, then the pinnipeds, then the whales and dolphins. Oh my goodness! We never see these in Southern California. How far north did we travel on our boat adventure? So this is a southern sea otter, and by its name, you would think they should live in Southern California. It's a southern sea otter. Once upon a time, they did live in Southern California, but they were hunted by people to the brink of extinction. Their population numbers are slowly making a comeback. They're around 3,000 right now, but their population hasn't gotten big enough for them to spread out. They're mostly in Central California. Population isn't big enough for them to spread out and spread down into new territories in Southern California. But this southern sea otter is a super important predator. Look at what it's eating right here. It is eating a crab. They like to eat crabs, other things in shells. They like to eat urchins. So they are an important little predator in our local kelp forests. All right. I am sorry. We are going to have to head all the way back into shore. I know we just saw something so exciting. That's how it is out here on the open ocean sometimes. We can't plan for what we're going to see. This is their home. This is where they live. And sometimes we get lucky and stumble across some animals. We stumbled across a lot of animals today. We got to see dolphins. We specifically saw common dolphins. We saw a humpback whale. We saw gray whales, which was awesome. We saw California sea lions. We saw that otter, which was so awesome. So many things we saw out on the whale watch today. I hope you had a good time. We hope to see you again at 10 o'clock. We do have another program that is all about birds. So if you were excited when we showed you that bird activity earlier out on the ocean, please stick around for our 10 o'clock program of birds. If not, we'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.